Yes, it's me again, Nancy Friedman, founder and chairman of Telephone Doctor Customer Service Training with our Out of the Box interview. I've been having so much fun with these out of the box interviews because these are people, I would say 99.9% of the people I've never met them on LinkedIn, which is my choice of, I can't think of the word. What's the word, Nancy? I can't think of it. My choice of social media, I guess. And so today, this is a story I'm going to let my guest tell of how we reconnected, even though I'll let her tell. My guest today is Janice Porter of Janice Porter and Associates. She'll tell you all about the associates later. And she's got a podcast that I have not heard yet, by all admission, but I'm going to, called Relationship Rule, R-U-L-E. Relationship Rule, and she will tell you. So Janice, come on in, say hello. This is unscripted, unedited, and as I told you in pre-record, just have fun.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Nancy. I just want to say it's Relationships with an S on the end. Relationships Rule is the name of my podcast, just in case.
Because I've been confusing it, saying Relationship Rules.
I know.
Relationships Rule.
Different person.
It's all where the comma goes. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
So I will share the story of, and we haven't met before, and we've only met on LinkedIn, but the story is this, that I'm a LinkedIn trainer, and I do what I teach my clients to do, which is to do outreach on LinkedIn, to meet new people, to build new relationships, to grow your business. And I did, my outreach landed in your LinkedIn as a LinkedIn request to connect. And I have a business partner who does the outreach for me. And if people respond and connect, then I look at it and then I start my conversation. And your name came up and I thought, I know this name. I know this person. And I also knew that it said you were the telephone doctor. So I had a big clue that it was you. And I went, wait a minute. And I went to my closet and I had a workbook called Telephone Courtesy Skills or something like that. And it was by you, the telephone doctor, Nancy Friedman. And it was dated. I'm dating both of us.
Yeah, you don't have to say the date. I thought I had a copy right here. I don't.
Yeah, it's all good. But what was interesting is that was in my former life when I was a corporate trainer for the telephone company. And I did workshops and all-day seminars on how receptionists should answer the phone and how people in departments should answer the phone and common telephone courtesy etiquette, etc.
Which is not so common.
No, exactly. And so I had your book and I went, oh my goodness, I have to talk to this person. And so we connected. I told you my story and we have had a couple of Zoom calls and I feel like I've known you forever. It's just amazing. But that was a LinkedIn connection. So,
and I apologize. I meant to have the book up. I still have the book. It still sells. It's still Common Sense, which I don't think will ever go out. But Janice sent me a picture of her holding up the book. And I thought, oh my God, how many people have that one? Yeah. That was, I think, my second book. But anyway, thank you. You've got an interesting story, an interesting life. We bonded very quickly, as you can see, and talked about not 1,000 things. I've said 1,000,000 times, I hate people who exaggerate.
All good.
Yeah, it's all good. All right. So Janice has a podcast, and I promise I'd ask about that. And to my secretary, Valerie, my assistant, Valerie, you are right. She loves to hear that. You are right, Valerie. It's not a book. It's a podcast. And I've not heard it yet. So tell us how and why that started as a podcast for Relationships Rule.
Thank you. Actually, you and I were talking offline before we got on this call about writing a book, and keep nudging
me to write a book.
And the podcast actually started because I didn't want to write a book, but I wanted to put myself out there. And I love talking, and I'm very curious, and I love talking to people and finding out what their stories are and so on. And that's how it started. And I'm just about to, I'm getting close to episode 200. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited. We air a new one every week, and you're going to be my guest in a couple of weeks. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I just love to interview people, whether they're famous, infamous, or not famous at all. It doesn't matter. It's just whether I click with them and whether I'm curious about what they have to say. And more importantly, that they believe in the power of relationships.
Beautifully put, beautifully put. So you've got a I don't want to say strange because you've been living it a while, a LinkedIn life training and a podcast on relationship, which isn't so odd when you stop to think about it, because that's what LinkedIn should be and is. My
Not for a lot of people.
my granddaughter's just getting on LinkedIn for her resume for intern and everything. And I said, the only thing I want to tell you, because I sent her to my trainer here in St. Louis, but now I can send them to you in Canada, Zoom wise anyway. I said, never, 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 and I said it 100 times, use the default invite from
Correct.
LinkedIn. Never use the default. Now that's the only tip that I scream out loud, because it says 0. It
Well,
says
if you want, I'll share one little thing with your audience about to add to that, because that is very true. Never use the default. Always add a personal note to your invite to somebody.
I don't even use the LinkedIn. I just personalize it on the 3 dots. You personalize your invite.
That's on your phone, right? On your desktop, you just hit the connect button.
Yeah, right. But anyway, yes, there's always a special note, and never starts out with, I'd like you to be on my LinkedIn. And can I give you the one I find the worst? You should run a poll on this. I'm serious. LinkedIn does a poll thing. What's your worst frustrating LinkedIn invite? I have several of them, but one is, I see we know several people. Does that give us the right to be friends? Because I got some people I don't like, but I know them, and I don't want to be friends with you if you know them.
Exactly.
So what would be the worst LinkedIn invite to start off, the first 6, 8, 10 words, whatever it is, in your opinion, Janice, the LinkedIn trainer, world famous lady?
I think the worst thing that I find is when someone says to me, I see you're a coach, and blah, blah, blah. I have a program that I think you could use. Number one, I don't say coach anywhere on my profile. I'm a trainer. And number two, how do you know I'll need your program if you haven't even looked at my profile? So I think that's the one that gets me the most, is they assume that, they know that what they have is they're pushing on you when they haven't even bothered to take a look. It might be not even a person. It might be a bot that's doing it,
Exactly. And as long we're on the topic, on the email one that frustrates me is, hi, Nancy, I know how busy you are. Boy, I wish I could say a dirty word. How the heck does anybody know how busy I am?
Yeah.
And why would you start out with a negative? So
and assuming, they're assuming, right?
Yeah, and assuming. So I know the audience is saying, well, Janice, give us the best opening line.
First of all, when you're reaching out to connect, you don't know that the person's actually going to read that personalized note, even though we say always do one, because a lot of people don't know as well as we do, and they just accept or ignore. So they accept. And then again, it comes back to us to start the conversation. So I think the worst is not having a personalized note, but if you do, you do have 300 characters, but I say keep it short, because you don't know if they're going to read it. So you might just at that point say, I came across your profile. I know it's generic, but I would say, I found such and such on your profile really interesting. I'd love to know more. Would you be open to connecting? And I always
that word open. I love that word open. Would you be
and also it's a question.
That is so warming and welcoming.
Okay, well, I like to ask the question, because people like to be asked instead of, again, assuming. And then if they respond to that, then I go into, my curiosity piece and trying to build rapport with them and that kind of thing.
Well, you are an expert out there, and there are many ways to open a conversation.
Absolutely.
And your expertise will help many. I really am embarrassed I didn't take the time to hear the podcast yet, but you're familiar, remember Larry King?
Yes.
Well, I loved him in his interviews, because every time he had somebody famous on, or wrote a book or a movie star that had a film out, he would say, I know nothing about you except you're famous.
Oh, that's good.
And he says, so I'm going to ask questions that nobody else have ever asked. And therefore it became a very, interaction one, instead of the same old question, how'd you start? When it was blah, blah. So I can never emulate him properly, but I that's what I go for in the out of the box interviews. And so far we're doing good. You've done a couple things. I just had something that jumped out of my mind. My mother used to say, you just got too much on your mind. But I wanted to ask you, and it was about a LinkedIn, it'll come back to me. Anyway, you're familiar with the LinkedIn polls?
Yes, of course. Yeah. They were a big rage for a while,
I
and
still get pretty good action on it.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you should do I think I should tell you what to do. Did I tell you I'm president of It's None of My Business Club?
Well, I will tell you one thing that might just sort of speak to what you were just saying about doing polls and doing content on LinkedIn, because I'm not the big content person. I say the money's in the mailbox. I say, have conversations with people, talk to people, get to know them, see if there's a fit for, being of service to them, or referring them to somebody, or just being, having a new friend. And I say that not in a joking way, but I know we're there to do business, but you never know where things will lead if you get to know someone. So, right.
Absolutely.
So for me, I spend more time actually having messages with people than I do writing content. Now, I do go on my newsfeed and do engage with other people's content more, because that's also another stepping stone for getting to know people and having people pay attention to you, because you're engaging with their things, and that's important. But for me, it's all about starting conversations, building or starting a relationship on LinkedIn, and taking it off LinkedIn and seeing where it can go.
Oh, I like that. That's good. Yeah. So I always say this is going to be about a 15-20 minute interview, and we've almost extended to that, but I don't want to stop just yet.
Okay.
Because I've got a few other things to ask you. And one was, where does someone go to watch your podcast or hear your podcast or watch whatever?
Yeah, they hear my podcast. Although I do record them on Zoom, because I never know, I might put them on YouTube at some point as well. But I'm on most of the social media or most of the podcast channels, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Radio, I think it is. There's a zillion of them. I also have a link to you just Google Relationships Rule podcast. Usually Apple comes up first, but I think Chartable is where it's housed. So that's another place. And you can check it out on my website too.
Which is?
JanicePorter.com.
PORTER, JanicePorter.com. What part of Canada are you in?
I'm in the pretty part, Vancouver. No, just.
Well, that is the beautiful part, man. Both Vancouvers are.
There are other beautiful places in Canada, but there's something about Vancouver that we have the mountains and we have the ocean, and it's just so pretty when it's.
Yeah, not too many cities have both.
Yeah. So
I haven't thought of that. I have a client, and terrible, I can't think of the name now, but they run a train from East Coast to West Coast of Canada, and that's been pre-COVID. Dick and I wanted to take it just across country. That you never sleep on the train. You travel all day, and you go to a hotel, and you get back on the train and travel back. I apologize if you're watching this. I apologize. I just can't. It's not coming up with the name, but anyway.
Does it go all the way across Canada, or just the Rocky Mountaineer that goes over?
I believe it's all across. I could be wrong. I was wrong once. I could be wrong again.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. So our save the date, I have no idea right now when this is going to run, as I'm going to Florida in about a week or so. But I want to get it up and running, because you give such valuable information, not only for LinkedIn, but relationships. When you talk about relationships, let's just touch on that just for a moment. Are you talking about love, since we're taping on Valentine's Day? Are you talking about man-woman relationship, or woman-woman, or man-man? Are you talking about human-human to relationships, or are you just talking about LinkedIn relationships?
Well, that's an interesting way to put that question. I would say that I'm talking about business relationships as opposed to romantic relationships.
Thank you.
Right?
I would have thought you did both, but there you go. This is why I love my out of the box, because I can ask any question that pops into my mind that maybe you haven't been asked before.
Well, here's an interesting thing. I had a couple on my podcast who were actually they're quite he's quite famous actually. I don't know if she is as famous. His name is John David Mann and his wife Anna Gabriel Mann. And he was a partner with Bob Berg in the book The Go-Giver, which is it's been in 2008. It's all about building relationships and networking, right? The Go-Giver. And John David Mann wrote the parable that is part of that book. And he's written like zillion books. And he and his wife wrote this book called The Go-Giver Marriage. And somebody referred them to me and said, they should be, you might want to put them on your podcast. And I thought, I'm not about marriage and relationships that way. That's not my part, but I'm not going to say no. I'm going to talk to them. And he sent me a digital copy of the book. And when I read it, I went, oh my gosh, this speaks to everything. It's like, again, a parable. That's what he's known for doing. And her part, she's like a clinical psychologist or something. And she did the pieces around each of the steps in the relationship piece that in the parable, and she wrote the training around it, and it was really good, and their episode was quite good on my podcast. And so you never know, right? So
you never know. Yeah, I love your word assume, and we all know how that's pronounced. You make an ass out of you and me. There, I said it, and I'm glad.
So generally it's about business relationships in business, but again, it's life. So
but we talk about relationship and marriage, and I'll close with this one little smiler from my husband. People, we worked together for 100 years, and people say, my gosh, Nancy and Dick, you work together 24/7, you live together 24/7, you travel 24/7, you're just never out of each other's sight. How do you make it work? And Dick, without missing a beat, said, we didn't know it wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
It's sweet, but it's true. We didn't discuss it. We didn't discuss it. We're going to work together. Is this going to work? Well, he just said, I need you. And I was there, and that's how our relationship lasted.
So I have a theory. One of my best friends who just passed away recently, she and I had this theory. Do you have a song, you and your husband? Do you have a special song?
Yes, it's right up here. What are you doing the rest of your life?
I knew it. See, we've always felt that the couples that really have that kind of a relationship have a song, and you just proved my point once again. Thank you.
I'm glad you put a nice note to share with the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, while it's all business for Janice Porter on LinkedIn, link in with her. You'll find how she starts a relationship. She's on LinkedIn just with Janice Porter, right?
Yes, you can find me on
degrees or a bunch of letters and degrees afterwards. Oh, no. I'm putting mine, no degrees.
No. Yeah, I have a degree, but I don't promote it on LinkedIn.
All right, that's why I like you. Okay. You're an amazing lady. I am glad you reached out. It was at least 4 or 5 months ago, and I thank you so much for coming on. Out of the box, we did good. You did great. Where can they reach you again? You've got it on here, which I'm going to share. Schedule a call, Janice at JanicePorter.com, or go ahead.
Or they can reach me on LinkedIn, right?
Or their phone number. Do you want a phone call?
Oh, sure. I'm always open to a phone call. 604-230-7141. It's all on my website and on my LinkedIn.
So. All right, now I'm going to leave you with a telephone doctor tip.
Okay.
Nobody wrote that down because you spoke too fast. Nobody can remember your phone number because you spoke too fast. And only because I love you am I saying this. So every phone number is twice and slowly. So mine would be 314, you take a little breath, 276, take a little breath, 1012. And your last 4 digits are always in 2. So yours would be 604 230 7141. 7141 is, well, in your case, it's easy to remember each way. And that's not to say you did it wrong. It's just to say, I want people to be able to hear it. And on voicemail, when people go, hi, Janice, this is Nancy, but give me a call at 721. Thanks a lot. What happened?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to see if you do a poll. I thank you for being on, and I know I'm going to be on your relationships rule, and we can talk a little bit more on what's going on. God bless. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Now I have to learn how to stop it. Okay, stop video.
No, stop record.
I'll stop recording. Ladies and gentlemen, there it is.